everyone! So in today's video, I'm going to be completing a 1-hour solo flight where I will be doing circuits around the airfield in order to fulfill the total solo hours needed for the license. As with every flight before flying, I must complete the pre-flight checks. There are external and internal checks that I have already completed before starting the engine, but now I need to complete the internal checks after starting the engine. Since there are a number of different checks to complete, I use a checklist and I read the checks out loud to make sure that I don't miss anything. At this stage, I'm just checking that the engine is operating as normal after start. I also make sure that the instruments are all set correctly. For example, in the cockpit there are 2 compasses, one at the top and another in the control panel, and I need to make sure that the readings of these compasses are aligned. I also make sure that I turn the radio on and tune it to the correct radio station. Then I'll be able to complete my radio check and obtain the airfield information needed, such as what runway is going to be used for takeoffs and landings. I will also be able to obtain the figures for the QNH, which is the height above sea level, and the QFE, which is the height above the airfield, needed to set the altimeter to the correct setting depending on whether I'm using the QNH or the QFE. In this case, since it's just circuits and I won't be leaving the airfield, I'll be using the QFE. After obtaining all the information and completing the checks, I can taxi to the runway. So just before entering the runway, I position the aircraft into wind in order to complete the power checks. This makes sure the RPM is working as it should by checking the magnetos, the carburetor heat has the effect it should have on the RPM, and that the oil temperature and pressure levels are okay. This is all done as the engine is running, so I have to hold the brakes on the whole time. After that, I complete the pre-takeoff checks so that I can taxi straight to the runway afterwards. This consists of preparing the plane for takeoff, which involves deploying 1 stage of flaps, setting the trimmer to neutral, making sure the transponder is set onto altitude, making sure all the doors and windows are closed and that I'm secure and strapped in my seat, and that I have full free movement of the controls. After all that's completed, I can then taxi to the runway, but I must make sure that it's clear before entering. Since this airport operates as Leicester radio, you don't have to wait for clearance from the controller, but you must make sure you communicate your actions and intentions via the radio. Once I'm all lined up, I'm ready for takeoff. As mentioned previously, for this flight I am completing circuits, which consists of taking off and following a rectangular pattern going round the runway before landing and then taking off again, called a touch and go. This helps me not only to build up my solo hours, but also to practice my landing skills and my in-flight skills, such as maintaining my altitude level. All good prep for the skills test. Today was quite a busy circuit, with many of the planes also going round, so I did have to maintain complete concentration. However, I did manage to complete 4 circuits in total for the full hour, and I also got in some good landing practice for the skills test, which was good. So once I have vacated the runway, I can stop temporarily to complete the after landing checks, which just involves resetting elements that are no longer needed, such as flaps, carburetor heat, and the trimmer. Once I've parked the plane, I can then complete the shutdown checks, which involve checking the magnetos before turning the engine off completely, switching off the radio and navigation instruments, as well as leaving the plane nice and tidy, ready for the next pilot.
Okay, so that is the solo flight done. That went well. I had some good practice for my landings and I am really happy on how they went. I'm definitely feeling more confident for the skills test. A couple of times I've landed on the centre line, which is important, and got experience flying during a busy circuit. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!